facts why we believe that Jesus is alive. I hope this will be helpful for you, since not long ago we read some books like Holy Grail, Da Vinci Code, and even in Discovery Channel they played about the tomb of Jesus and his family. Even though oftentimes their statement about Jesus contradict to each other, basically they state that Jesus is still dead. So today I would like to share what I read from archaeologists, from Bible scholars and historical experts, why they believe that Jesus is alive. I would like to share with you 5 things. Number 1, the change in the disciples. I know many of you experienced May 1998 in Jakarta, in Indonesia. You remember what happened back then? As I prepared this, I remember May 1998, when chaotic happened in Indonesia. My sister and her husband live in Jakarta. You know what happened? One day, mob came to their area. They burned houses. So she and her husband just ran to the top of their house. They just cried to God, "Oh God, please help us, save us." They saw the neighbor burn. And then the mob came to their house, banging the door, "Open the door, open the door." They were in despair. But thank God, the patrol police passed. So the mob left. And then they could go to the airport and went to Semarang, and then we met them in Semarang, and they stayed with us in Kudus, the city where I live. It was more safer. And I could see how traumatic they are. Even though they live with us in safer place, when they heard something like that, they were shocked, like afraid, because of what they saw before. And eventually, when the situation in Jakarta is getting better, they went back to Jakarta. Let me tell you that what happened with the situation in the first century. After Jesus died, the situation was not getting better. In fact, many of Jesus' disciples were persecuted. Mungkin bisa minta tolong yang kecil untuk dibimbing dulu ya. The situation was still the same. But something happened to Christ's disciples. John Stott, a professor and leading theologian in the world today, says, perhaps the transformation of the disciples is the greatest evidence of all for the resurrection. When Jesus died, they were heartbroken, confused, and frightened. But within less than 2 months, they came out of hiding, full of joy, confidence, and courage. What can account for this dramatic transformation? Only the transformation, together with Pentecost, which followed soon afterwards. If Jesus was still dead, the disciples were still in fear. Even there will be no Christianity today. Number 2, eyewitness account. Do you know that there are 11 times recorded in the Bible that Jesus appeared to people after his death? He appeared to individuals, to the disciples, and one time appeared to a group of over 500 people. You know, some people say, oh, the disciple of Jesus must have hallucination because they love Jesus so much. So when Jesus died, they could not accept that. So they have hallucination. But you know, I studied psychology. Of course, hallucination happen to some people. But can you imagine that all 500 people at the same time experience hallucination? The psychologist said, I quote, this is quotation from Liz Strobel. I went to a psychologist friend and said, if 500 people claim to see Jesus after he died, it was just a hallucination. He said, hallucinations are an individual event. If 500 people have the same hallucination, that is bigger miracle than the resurrection. So, of course, it is not hallucination. Number 3, modern day account. We already talked about the change that happened in the lives of the disciples. But do you realize that Jesus is still changing lives today? One story that I would like to share with you is about Nicky Cruz. He was born December 6, 1938 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He was one of the 17 brothers and sisters. Consequently, he was both abused and neglected. His parents were Satanist followers. His father often beat him and put him in a dark room with many pigeons. So Nicky Cruz grew up to be a young man who full with rage, anger in his heart, because he never experienced love in his life. When he was 17 years old, he was sent to New York to live with his brother Frank. But upon his arrival, he could not meet his brother. So he lived in the streets. And eventually he was involved in gang. Oftentimes before that he was beaten badly, made him unconscious for many days. And finally he made a decision to join a gang called Mau Mau's, the scariest gang in New York. And when he got initiation ceremony, the group beat him so he was unable to move for 10 days. But this young Nicky Cruz, full with anger, want to be the great man, he trained how to fight. Eventually he became the leader of this gang. I don't know how many people he had beaten badly. But one day, to make long story short, he heard David Wilkinson came to his area, telling that Jesus loves you no matter what you have done. He's willing to forgive you. And you know what Nicky Cruz did? He spit on his face. And he threatened, if you come again in this area, I will kill you. But David Wilkinson, because he was sure that God sent him to that area, he kept coming until one day Nicky Cruz broke his heart.